I'm here with John Korwin Mikke, an ex-European MP, Polish MEP. Nice to meet you. Thank you for joining me. Well, let's ask, why did you resign from the European Union?
Because I've been bored. I want my young friends to take my place.
Right. Okay.
My place. You must take the chances, offer the chances to the young men. And moreover, I think in the next elections, maybe after next year, you should boss me being in the European Parliament. Got famous and so on. So I can live without European money. So.
Right. Okay. So, do you think that your younger compatriots will do as good a job?
Yes, because I have been bored, and he's not bored yet. So
right. Okay.
He is not yet.
Okay. So let's talk about your views on the European Union, because there are going to be people. Sorry, we're recording.
Hello. Oh, are you? Yeah. Is it live? No.
Well.
Is it live?
We're going to have to start again.
All right. Sorry. I just wanted to check that.
Sorry. So yeah, there are going to be people watching this who aren't really aware of your views on the European Union. Would you like to tell people what you think of it?
Well, European Union, in the beginning, it was just a European community of steel and coal. Which is just a normal free market. Then it was being turned into CEE. It was free market for everything. It was a very good institution. But then it was overtaken by the left conspirators from the left. It was a complot. In the year 60s or 70s, Rudi Dutschke, he was a guru of German left. There was a trying situation in Europe. The Rote Armee Fraktion has been kidnapping entrepreneurs, bankers, and so on. Brigate Rosse in Italy had even kidnapped the Prime Minister Aldo Moro, and they killed him. But happily, they have been halted. And then Rudi Dutschke said, "Stop these childish games. Stop attack the police, inscribed for the policemen. Stop attack the European Union, inscribed to the European Union. Stop attack the oppressive states, against the clerk of the states." And slowly they were supporting each other. This is very dangerous. If there is in the organization, there are 2, 3, 4 men who are in a clandestine way supporting them. This is very dangerous. Yeah. They very easily overtake the power. And those conspirators have got the power in the European Union. They are slowly turning into union of Soviet European republics. Yeah. Even there was a European community, which was a federation of states. Now it is European Union. It is a state, which is a state, federal state. And they want to turn it after Brexit, because the Great Britain was against. After the Brexit, they want to turn it into a unified state.
Yes, they do.
And you must understand, perhaps you don't know, but those conspirators making this complot, they wanted Brexit. Perhaps you don't remember, but 2 weeks before the referendum, they announced it, which is absolutely false, that all Turks will get the passport to the European Union. It was not true, but it was a decisive moment when Great Britain turned anti.
So you think they announced that to try and encourage the British to leave the European Union?
They wanted Brexit, because with Great Britain and Poland, it was very difficult to turn the European Union into a unified state. But without Great Britain, it is much easier.
Yeah, because we've been a bastion against sort of further integration, haven't we?
Yes.
So yeah.
So they want a full integration.
Yeah.
It is not. I don't understand the situation in present European Commission, but in the previous Commission, it is 80% of the posts were by communists. Barroso was a Trotskyist.
Yeah.
The Trotskyist, the Baron Ashton from Great Britain was a member of the British Communist Party. The president from Belgium, I don't remember his name. He was from the family of communists, and Belgian communists are to the left of the Maoists.
Oh, really? They're to the left
Yes.
of the Maoists, right?
The commissaire from Greece. She was being expelled from the Communist Party for the leftist views, or two leftist views.
Too communist for the communists.
Yes, they were too communist for the communists. So now it's a bit better, But they were on the verge of building a communist state. Now it is a very strong fight inside the European Union.
Right. Okay. Because I mean, it's very obviously becoming increasingly socialist, and
Yeah.
I mean, the whole project is about wealth.
It is socialist.
Yeah.
It's only a problem whether they turn communist or not. No, Charles Marx has said 200 years ago that socialism will be first built in the most developed countries in the world. It is true. The Soviet Union, Poland, China, it was misunderstanding. It's communism, not socialism.
Yeah.
Here is building socialism. In Poland, there was just proverb that it is a scientific
Oh yes,
socialism.
yes.
And Mr. Bukowski, who is now living in Great Britain, he says that it cannot be scientific because if the scientists would do it, he would begin with the experiment of the rats or dogs or something like that.
And if it was scientific, surely after the number of failed experiments, you would probably conclude that it doesn't work.
It doesn't work anything. There is an old proverb that if they would build socialism on the Sahara, there would be lack of sand after 40 years.
Yeah.
Of course, transitional lack of lack of sand.
Well, yeah. So, what is it about socialism that you think is so appealing to people in Europe? Because I mean, when you have massively wealthy countries where we have huge middle classes, we've got very small number of actually poor people, and there's a great deal of class mobility. Why are they crying out for socialism?
You are pragmatic, and I am a dogmatic, and I try to give a dogmatic answer.
Okay, yeah.
It's not a problem of class, but socialism they are accusing socialism of Maoism or murder millions of people and so on and so on. It's not the problem of socialism. If you, I tell some horrible thing, if you will kill half of a nation, it doesn't destroy the nation. Usually it is the weaker one which will be killed, a more smart one, more wise man. So the nation after such an experiment is wiser, stronger and so on.
Right.
Selection. The most important is that if you make the nation weak, if you support everybody, if you give money to those who shouldn't give this money, you are destroying the nation. I even told once in Poland, I am repeating it very easily. If some anti-Semite wants to destroy Israel, you shouldn't shoot to them. No. You should give every Israelis 5,000 pounds a month. Without asking, after 2 generations, they
Total dependence.
Destroyed. So this is more dangerous. This is nanny state. No, just imagine a good mother. Mother has a child who is a boy who is 5 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years old. He's 40. Mama is taking care of him. He's looking at a good car and buying him in sweets, buying booze and
spoiling the child.
Yes, and looking at the girls which meeting with and so on. She's destroying this man. She has a good face. She wants a good for him. She doesn't understand. She's destroying him, and that's exactly what those who want to build this nanny state, welfare state, are doing with the nations in Europe.
Well, I completely agree with you. Actually, and I think that's a great analogy as well, because it's like a long known truism that you have to let children be on their own and grow and make their own mistakes and earn their own way in life.
And it is very different, because a father usually says, "Oh, you can be cut, okay, you get burned, okay,
you will be okay."
Let's give you. And mother says, "Don't do that." Of course, he does everything. There is no punishment for that.
Yeah.
So the man's decision is let 90% and severe punishment for this 10% with nothing. Mommy is forbidding everything.
Yeah.
There is no punishment.
Yeah.
So this in Europe you have the second way of dealing with people. It is destroying.
I actually really agree with you on that, and I think one of the things that I have a problem with is it makes people timid. It makes them timid. It makes them afraid of new things.
Oh, I tell you, no. It is very deliberate action.
Oh, okay.
No. In Europe, well, let's begin with the beginning. It will be a bit long. Can I?
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Okay.
We've got all the time in the world.
There were European values, and the values of European Union are exactly the opposite. What was good in Europe is bad in the European Union, and so on. Exactly opposite.
Yeah.
So with the European values, we conquered all the world. With Union values, the world is colonizing us now. Yes, exactly. You know, I was told that 200 years ago, Europeans were selling the percals to the Negroes in Africa. Should I say Africans? No, I'm saying Negroes.
You use whatever language you want. It's fine.
And now I've been on the beach in Italy last year, and I see the Negro were selling percals to Europeans. Exactly opposite. But it is just not important.
Yeah.
Most important that one of those values was that the children belong to the parents, and it was the father who decided what is taught to his child.
Yes.
And it is the father who decided. Why? Because those children had to support his parents on the old age. So you had to have children, and plenty of children, 5, 6. You had to give them a good education to earn money, and you should make them harm because in the old age they could make revenge on them. So the family has been connected with a very strong economic tie. Now the tie is being broken. Why should I have child? When being old, I get the state
pension.
State pension. Why should I have a child? And I have not money for child because I pay for my pension. So the number of children diminishes. You can say a correlation between the security and negative number of children.
That's interesting because most people normally chalk that up to prosperity itself, not necessarily social programs. Most people are under the impression that when you become wealthy, you want less children. But that's an interesting idea that you have that's specifically ascribed to the social programs, because you can go back to the sort of imperial era in Britain, and the aristocratic families had dozens of children.
Need not, but the poor people, the proletariat, it is the one who has only proles. It is his organization. So you must understand one thing, that in the Europe, the children belonged to the parents. It is the father who decided anything, and now the child belongs to the state. I was shocked. 2 years ago, a Democratic politician in America has said openly that the children belong to the state.
Really?
It is, but 2 weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, Mrs. Theresa May, the Prime Minister of Her Majesty's government, has said the same. In the case of those Alfred events.
They do that, and the Child Protective Services will come for your children if you have the wrong political opinions.
And in the slavery state, it's normal. The child of a slave belongs to his owner. You know, when I have a beach, I told you, I have a beach, and they have puppies.
The puppies belong to you.
Who is to vaccinate the puppies? The beach owner.
Of course.
If you have a child, who decides whether to vaccinate or not? Your owner. You are a slave. You must understand. You are a slave, not a free man. You are a slave because your child don't belong to you. And that's the second reason why people don't have children. Because the children are not this. Why should I have children? The only moment when the child is mine is when my child has broke the window. So I must pay for it.
Then it's your responsibility. But I mean, you raise a good point, and it's one of those things that it's going to be very difficult to have this conversation out of context with someone else in Britain to explain that, look, exactly as you say, you know, if you don't actually own your children and someone else does, and they get to make decisions for your children, how are you different from a slave? And they'll say, well, look at the wealth we have around us. And it's like, ultimately they're saying we have a lovely gilded cage, aren't they?
You must understand. In Rome, plenty of slaves had more money than the owners.
Oh yeah, I'm aware. Yeah.
In Rome, the slave had to pay 90% of the money he earned outside of the house to his owner. But in Europe, the taxes are 83%. So, of course, you are told that only 83 and in Rome it was 90%. But for this 90%, the owner must give him food, shelter, and food. In Europe, not so. So the situation of slave in the Rome was much better. But tell you, do you know what is the greatest difference between the slave and the free man?
Tell me.
Huh?
Tell me.
I can tell you. Because the slave on the street of Rome, who was even well dressed, but he was not allowed to wear weapons.
Oh, well,
It is the greatest difference between, when American occupied Iraq. They occupied Iraq, but they don't take the arms from the Iraqi. For Americans, it was just unthinkable to take money from the free man.
Yeah.
So every Arab had his gun, and in Europe, our owners have taken the why? Because they are afraid of the revolt of the.
Of course they are, yeah. Of course they are, because they're not accountable to any particular group of people. That's what annoys me more than anything in Europe is you've got the commission which doesn't have they act like a government, but they don't have a demos, a people that they are voted in by. They're not held accountable. And I mean maybe it's because I'm English, but I find that intolerable. I can't stand it. But the way you frame that just then, I mean, you're not wrong, but it seems like a dramatic characterization.
Yeah, but I give some more dramatic.
Go ahead.
It was the father who decided what the child is being taught in school. In Europe.
And now
it is state who decides, which of course it is natural, because in the slavery state, this child of the slaves work for not for his father, but for the state. So it is the slave owner who decides what he's going to taught.
In Germany, it's actually illegal to do homeschooling, isn't it?
Yeah, but because the bill was edited in 1938.
Really?
Yes. It is still valid. It's before 1938. But there was very important feature. There was no co-education.
Right.
Only in very primitive societies there is no death penalty and there is co-education. When there is a sorcerer, somebody is a tribe, there is no co-education because there is a kind of culture. The progress is in differentiation, not in unification. So there was no co-education, but what was taught the boys? The most important thing, the boy must be aggressive. The boy must fight.
Yeah, must be a warrior.
Fight for honor, for truth, for faith, for fatherland, for women, for children. He must fight. He must fight. He was the obligation. The burden of the white man is to want to fight. And in European Union, of course, it is just the opposite.
Yep.
Even in the prep schools, the children,
it's the worst thing you can do.
Are forbidden to be aggressive. Why? Because the owners are afraid of the revolt of the slaves. The slave must be timid, must be be aggressive.
You're making me hate my government.
Yes, it is exactly. It is well thought. The system is perfectly scammed. Perfectly,
Well, I mean, this is something that is a genuine problem in the West. The feminization of boys. I mean, there was I think it was a New York Times article the other day that they were proclaiming the century of what they called the twink, which is a very skinny, very effeminate man. Fertility rates are dropping because sperm rates are dropping. I mean, obviously, the good corollary is this is violent crime is going down.
But that is another reason for introducing the co-education, because the men, when you when you are with somebody, you are like you are doing. I don't know the English proverb. I'm sure there is the same thing because in Polish. So if the boys are being with girls, they are assimilating to the girls.
Yes.
They are even more feminine than the girls sometimes. So, but who will defend the slave owners when it comes to Muslims or anybody else? Who will defend them? No, there is a Rudyard Kipling. Kipling verses which says, "It's Tommy here and Tommy there, and go away, you brute." But he is the savior of the country when guns begin to shoot. It is Kipling.
Well, that's honestly one of the, I think, the major concerns about the undermining of masculinity in Western societies. Because, I mean, ultimately, if we carry on the trajectory that we are, all of the impressive military equipment in the world won't make a man who is prepared to stand at the guns and actually fire them.
But I tell you something.
Yeah.
The boys are being taught something very, very important, that risk is bad. It is security which is most important. But it is told that the highest value is the man's life. You cannot have any civilization with such a principle, because if the highest value is man's life, so I can take the child, put the knife to his throat, and say, "Give me $1 billion." If it is the highest value, it is more value than a small $1 billion. So the result was that there was an interview given by the king's soldiers of Kingdom of Danis, the chief of the trade unions of the soldier of Kingdom of Danis. And on the press conference, he said that in case of war, the first duty of the soldier is to hoist the white flag.
Okay.
No. If you have a principle that the highest value is human life,
then obviously
the only way to avoid the loss of human life is to surrender in the first moment.
Of course, yeah.
So how can you teach people such an idiotism?
It's actually quite amazing when you put it like this, because I can understand why they would say that the highest value should be a human life. I can understand why they said this, because they want to create a sort of tolerant, liberal society that doesn't produce violence and insurrection and things like this. I can understand why they would say that. But I think, you're definitely correct that there is something essential about the human being, a man particularly, that is being drained away by that. I mean, I for example, I never complain when any of my, when I was a child, my father was always okay to let me fight other boys. He was always okay. It drove my mum crazy, but my dad was fine with it. And I never understood it until I became a father myself and thought, actually, no, let him have a fight, let them sort it out themselves. They've got to learn.
The man turns conservative when he has a daughter being 13.
I do get called a right-winger these days, I have to say. But it's interesting how we're talking. We're not really talking policy anymore. We're talking about the fundamental values on which our societies are built. That's the most relevant conversation we can have.
I repeat, they are exactly opposite to the European values.
Yeah.
And there is the result. But there is a very, very strong logical conclusion. If the European values were best. They're the best because we can conquer all the world.
Yeah, of course.
They're the best.
Yeah.
So if the Union values are just opposite, they are the worst. So the values of Negro tribe, of Arabs, are better than Union.
I agree.
So I told the meeting on the headband, so I prefer occupation by Muslims to the occupation by European Union. Well, okay.
That's a great statement.
Suppose we are fit to the occupation of European Union.
Yeah.
You are.
I agree. I'm totally opposed to the European Union. I just like to hear you say it.
They come Muslims. There will be no parades of homosexual parades. No. The murderers, they had cuts next day. There will be no VAT tax, which is contrary to the Quran.
Yeah.
There will be no income tax, is Quran. There will be no sit against Quran. There will be no buy and sell tax, which is to the Quran. The economy would flourish. the Spain under occupation of Arabs, because in 9th century
I know.
Global warming, and the Arabs occupied Spain and half of France, and the Spain was flourishing under
That's
the
true.
occupation.
That's very true. Yeah.
Flourishing, and moreover, the Christian faith was flourishing under the modern occupation. But now, under the occupation of the European Union, the Christian faith is just fading out. So,
That's true.
from every point of view, it is better to be under occupation of Muslims than the occupation of the European Union.
Well, I mean, I'm not a Christian, so I'm not I'm not bothered about the Christian faith. But I understand where you're going with this because.
One thing.
Go on.
But you must understand one thing.
Go.
You cannot be you can be no Christian, of course. But I have been in Saudi Arabia,
I haven't.
and I was told by an Arab, if you want that your wife would treat you, and the children don't listen to you, just tell them that God doesn't exist. So the Arabs, perhaps they don't believe in the God, in God, but they pretend because they want women to be faithful, and children to listen to them. So it is very important. It is very important. And moreover, if one boy is fighting with another one, and he believes that if he dies, he'll be in heaven, so he fights. If he's afraid of losing his precious life, he will not fight.
Yeah.
So that's why all the states, all the countries which believed in the life in better world were winning against the atheist countries.
See, I do find that very interesting because I'm aware from talking to various people and reading various things that strength is very well recognized in the Arab world. It's something they treat as an important value, and I honestly think that the lack of fortitude and strength that the West shows is one of the reasons that they feel they can take advantage of us. You know?
Well, there are the people who are very rich, and they want to do something with this money, and they want to make us good. And there is a Polish proverb, I don't know what is the English counterpart, that if somebody wants to help you, just fly away as quickly as possible.
Right. Okay.
So they are trying to make us good. And they are crippling us with its nanny state and so on and so on. They want us good, really. They have a good, but still they are crippling us.
But it's not necessarily virtue, is it? That's the difference. You know, being good is not necessarily the same as being virtuous. Being good is often what, like, I suppose you would say a slave master would say to their slave. But a virtuous man is demonstrated by his action, isn't he?
Well, just the slave in Roman times. Nobody ordered the slave when he was riding horse to pin himself to the horse with the seat belt, because if he can fall and lose his precious life, the owner paid for him 6 times for the ox. 6 times for the ox. It was very precious. So he should take care of him. But still he was free not to have a seat belt. But now I have, in European Union, I have to put a seat belt in my own car. Understand? It is shocking. Just imagine a free man. Free man. My example is D'Artagnan. No, Monsieur D'Artagnan said, Monsieur D'Artagnan, you must pin himself to your horse because you can die if you fall down on the horse. So he would laugh. And if somebody would insist, he would take his spade and kill you, because he was a free man.
Because
in Europe, the people are slaves, and they do what they are told. No, just imagine a German 100 years ago. Somebody comes to him and says, you must take your child, your boy, to school, and in school he will be taught homosexuality, which is in Germany. So he would take, he can kill those men, or at least make some help. Now, this German,
he just does it.
Potently gives this boy, if his owner wants him to do it, he's doing. That's why I hate European Union. It has turned the proud Europeans into the slaves. Into the timid slaves, and that's why. No, a good Russian hates the Soviet Union, a good German hates the Third Reich, and a good European must hate European Union. I am good European.
Well, Tell you, I completely agree with you on that one. I think that's a fabulous place to look at it. See, I can't say that what you're saying isn't true, because it is. There is a truth to what you're saying. And I agree with you that there should be a return to a valuation of masculinity. I think that masculinity should be valued.
Of course.
I do think so. But for example, I still think seatbelts are a good idea.
What?
Seatbelts.
Seatbelts.
I still think they're a good idea because they save lives.
But it is your problem.
That's true.
It is you lose your precious life, not me.
Why should the government make us wear the seatbelt? Yeah. You should choose to wear the seatbelt for yourself. Yeah.
By the way, if you want to be precise, the passengers should have seatbelt. But in Poland, it was a Liberal Democratic Congress who got power by Mr. Wałęsa, who was the agent of secret police, by the way, and he got the power. And the first bill they introduced was the bill to have the seatbelts obligatory. And I was a member of Polish Parliament, and I said openly, if you introduce this, the number of deaths in the car accidents will be greater. There was an uproar of laughs.
Yeah.
And next year, the number of deaths was greater.
Why? Yeah.
Very easy. Now, if you are in the Tivoli, you are driving the car, you are chatting with the other cars and so on. If you feel safe, you can drive more quickly than usual. If I know I am safe in the seatbelts, so I will drive quicker, because I would be afraid of losing my life at 80 miles per hour, and I am with the seatbelts. I'm not afraid, so with 100 miles. So the number of the drivers who dies is smaller, but the number of the passers-by is greater.
Really? But I guess I'll have to check that because I've never heard that. But that. I mean, it certainly has a logical reason.
I was working with the Institute of Road Transport for some time after 1968 in Poland, and I can tell you another thing very shocking.
Oh yeah, please.
That introducing the limits on the speed also makes the number of the car accident greater.
And why is that?
If you are going from London to Scottish Highlands and so on, if you are going quickly, it takes 3 hours. If you are going slowly, it is 7 hours. The majority of accidents is the last hour of driving because you are tired.
Yeah.
And it's very important. And moreover, 80% of the accident is being caused by the 20% of the poor drivers and poor cars. If you are driving quicker, so you can eliminate the worst drivers and the worst cars, because to transport the same amount of the goods and passengers, the number of cars is smaller. So you can eliminate the worst drivers and worst cars. Just think about it.
See, now I like the way you're approaching these problems, because I think that there's a distinct problem with the mindset of the social planner, as in the person who says we can. For the example of seatbelts is a great one actually. If we make everyone wear a seatbelt, then theoretically we'll reduce the number of accidents, and that's the mindset of a social planner. They see society.
When this bill in Poland has been introduced, and they believed that the number of death accidents will be smaller.
Yeah.
Do the insurance companies lower the pay for? No,
of course they don't. Yeah,
they did not.
Yeah.
They were right, rightly so, because the number was greater.
But getting back to it's interesting, the mindset though, because you're taking a very bottom-up mindset, as in the people themselves should take responsibility for themselves completely.
Their family.
And they are the ones with whom the burden is placed. It's not the government, So if you wear your seatbelt and you get into an accident, then you'll probably be okay. But if the other fellow didn't, that's his responsibility. It's not the government's responsibility to prevent that from happening. It was.
But if it is the government's responsibility, then of course governments demands me to.
Then they're gonna and more and more and more.
I give you another example.
Yeah.
I was reading Agatha Christie's books. One of them, old lady goes to the pharmacy and is buying a pound of arsenic, such a poison. Arsenic.
Arsenic.
Arsenic, yeah, arsenic poison. Just you want to kill the rats in her cellar, and somebody is stealing some of this arsenic. Is killing somebody. 100 years ago, 80 years ago, you could go to the pharmacy and buy a pound of arsenic. Why you cannot do that? Because there is no death penalty. If there is death penalty, if somebody would poison anybody, he was sure he would be hanged. Now, Mr. Andrew Breivik can kill 77 persons in Sweden or Norway, I didn't remember, and he only wants to have MP4 in his cell.
Oh he's in Norwegian jails.
There is no death penalty. The murderers are not afraid.
Well, okay, but there are studies that show that the death penalty isn't really a deterrent. So
it is.
Is it?
I tell you an example from Poland.
Okay.
A year ago, a man has been expelled from the prison. I say expelled because he wanted to be in prison. In prison is a socialist invention. In prison you have everything on time, 3 times a day, a meal, change of the clothes, a walk half an hour a day. Everything is sure.
Yes.
Sure.
Total security.
It's a typical socialism. It is prison. Unfortunately, he's been expelled because his term has ended. He wanted to return. He went to the first woman on the street, take a knife, cut her throat, killed her, and returned to the prison. In this prison, he was a very precious prisoner because murderers are very high in the hierarchy of the prisoners. So, those who taken to abolish the death penalty have the blood of these women on their hands. They are murderers. Who abolished death penalty has a bloody hands. Blood of the victims who had been murdered were not murdered if there was a death penalty.
But that's one example that doesn't necessarily disprove a trend, though. So I mean, I get the feeling that a lot of murderers don't think they're going to get caught.
Communist times, I've been several times in the prison.
Right.
And I am thinking under my room, and one of inmates next day is being released, and another inmate comes to him and says, "Can you do this?" He says, "I can do this because for this there are 2 years. I will not do this because for this is 5 years." And if there is death penalty, he would not do this.
Well,
at least part of the murderers are afraid of the
that I agree. I mean, career criminal types who commit crimes for a living, they would undoubtedly be detected.
I think for murderer, not for killing. It's quite different.
Right.
Murderer who purposely is killing somebody. If he kills somebody, he can count the death penalty into his account.
Yeah, but I mean, there is no way we're ever going to be able to persuade people of any of these things.
No.
I think we're too far. Like nobody's going to agree. Everyone's going to say, "Well, that sounds terrible. That sounds rough. We can't make people do these things. We can't make people take responsibility for their lives. We can't let boys fight. They might get hurt." They'll say things like that. I mean, what do you say to that?
Yeah, there is a clip in the internet from China.
Yeah.
When a lady trainer training his boy, he's 6 months old, and throws it into water, he just fall out and began to breathe. And 80% of the internet is shocked. How it is possible? How you can treat this child in this way? But the children can swim. If you don't believe that we are born to swim, just look at the hair here.
Oh yeah,
they are this way. Because we are in the water, water creatures. In the easy phase of the evolution, we will be swimming in the water. That's the phase of the hairs. And you can breathe, but you must be taught. When I have a family of the nightingales. father, mother, and seven small nightingales.
Yeah.
As they are sitting on the branch of the tree, they are afraid. And it is duty of the father to throw them down from the branch. They know how to.
So they can fly.
Yes.
Yeah.
You must. It is living in the free market is much easier than flying in the.
Well, I mean, there's definitely an argument for, I guess you could call it tough love. It's an English phrase, but tough love, as in sometimes you have to do what's not immediately gratifying, but in the long run is good for you, builds you character, gets helps you overcome problems. Learning this to do this yourself
kill you
makes you stronger. Exactly. But I mean, maybe I've just been living in the West for too long, and I can't see how you're going to sell it. It's really annoying because I really like what you're saying. I like the ethos of what you're saying.
But you must understand, if we don't return to the European value, it is the Muslims who will win. Because the Muslim boy, when he has a kind of ceremony, being 8 or 9, he must kill a sheep. He must kill a lamb.
I didn't know that.
Just on the memory of Isaac.
Yeah.
The Isaac. When not kill the boy can kill, and European cannot kill a fish.
Yeah.
So they must win. In Europe, the boys are told you cannot answer with aggression against aggression. You must negotiate, have a dialogue. No, last September in Germany, a pair went with their tent to the forest just. And came a Muslim Negro, by the way, taken the girl with the hair, raped her. This boy tried to negotiate with him and even a dialogue. Unfortunately, he just raped her and went away.
Wow, he wasn't interested in a dialogue. I can't believe it.
So the Muslims in their mosques, they are saying that our daughters and granddaughters, they will be in their harems, and they will be, and I said more, they will be satisfied. As George Bernard Shaw has said, that the real woman won't prefer to be the fourth wife of a real man than a first wife of somebody without balls. And
that's probably true.
And what is this man useful for this lady, which left to be raped?
I mean, I can't think of a better way of underlining the catastrophic loss of masculinity in Europe than to try and negotiate with a rapist in the middle of the rape. I mean, what kind of person doesn't fight the rapist off?
You cannot fight because the aggression is something bad.
I guess that we've demonstrated that it's not always bad. I guess it's about when you use it.
I agree. It's not always bad.
But you've got to understand. The reason that what you say is it seems outlandish here is because we have been conditioned for decades
to fight with a bad aggressive man. You need a good aggressive man.
That's true. You absolutely do. And
against bad men with gun, you must have a good man with gun.
That's true. That's very true.
And a colt is a great leveler because a woman can defend herself against a man. Without gun, she is helpless.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not against firearms personally. So I mean, it's not worth getting into the debate, to be honest. But I'm not against the ownership of firearms. So I'm not. I agree with you, but what the things that you're suggesting would require such a radical restructuring of the world view in our societies.
It is counter-revolution.
Yeah, it would be. It would be a revolution.
Counter-revolution.
Yeah.
Counter-revolution.
But I definitely like the idea of
Fabian Society and other thinkers on the left has told that the revolution is wrong thing. You must have a slow, creeping revolution. They say 1% of taxes. 1%. Now we must have a revolution. It is the kind of but take it down. You cannot do it in partly. You must do it. You must counter-revolution. Return to normal. And I tell you, in Poland, in the communist times, there was a rule, the priority of the working class.
Yeah.
And every speaker of the class tells about the working class. But he returned to his factory and he ordered this ruling class.
Yeah.
Exactly the same is here. You can hear in the European Parliament the man who is saying that the women are equal, like that. He returns to his home and has Susan make dinner, and Susan of course makes dinner because they are a normal couple. Of course. So it is only in the verbal structure.
Yeah, it's just what they say.
Yeah. So it is enough that the TV will stop to input of us those new patterns, and in 2 weeks it will return to normality. There is no problem. It's only as the famous socialist Dr. Joseph Goebbels has said that it is enough to repeat 100 times the lie, and the lie begins truth. So they are telling you, for example, that democracy is good. They are repeating it 100 times a day, and the people believe that the system with two bums has twice as more in politics voice than the professor of the university. It is of course absurd, but after repeating it 100 times, people begin to believe in it. Of course, democracy is absurd. Europe has been conquering of the world, but all monarchies. All monarchies. There was no democracy.
That's true.
No democracy. We have a two example of democracy. Athens, who introduced democracy and lost to the Macedonia in terrible, but all the leaders of the political parties have been in the pocket of King Philip of Macedonia.
That's true. Yeah, no, that's true.
Other example was
they lost to Sparta
in Poland. Another example of democracy. We have two kingdoms, Kingdom of Poland and Great of Lithuania. They have been united into republic. There was no hereditary king. The king was like first secretary in Soviet Union. Exactly. And this very big country, very big state, lost terribly. Nobody fights. Nobody fights when the three powers, Russia, Prussia, and Austria, has been grabbed. Nobody fighted against. Nobody wanted to defend the republic. It was in all the Europe. They've been laughing at this of Poland.
Okay, so why do you think that is? Because the Romans fought and defended their republic until they eventually became an empire. So the Romans.
Yes, but
so it can't be. It's not republicanism or democracy itself, is it? It's something about. I don't know. I mean, what do you think? How do you square that?
The republic in Rome has been very quickly turned into Caesarism, but Caesarism is not kingdom. It is like in Soviet Union. The first secretary, Caesar. So I'm against Caesarism. I am for monarchy.
You're for monarchy.
I am for monarchy, and I don't believe in Queen Elizabeth. I met her in Poland.
Oh, did you?
I met Prince Charles also. I don't believe in him. But perhaps Prince William will change something.
Well, I'm not pro-monarchy, but I understand where you're going with that. I don't think he will. I think he's...
Don't believe in majority. Majority is always stupid. In Poland and in other countries, 70% of people cannot understand the timetable of the buses on the stop.
It is true that the majority are stupid, but so making the case for democracy is about preventing tyranny. This is, I think, one of the key things that we learn from the European continent, is that tyranny can spring up almost overnight.
But the tyrant, the single tyrant, can be stupid or wise, but majority is always stupid. So,
oh, wow, that's a good point.
But to become a tyrant, to become a king, you must have some features. You must have some virtues. You must be strong, wise, or something like that.
Well,
to become a voter, you don't have.
Well, yeah, but you say that, but we've had plenty of kings who have been anything but strong and wise, and they've been weak and indolent, and they've frittered away everything that we've had in the past. So I I don't think monarchy is better than democracy, but I agree that democracy has plenty of flaws. You know,
and I tell you why you have democracy now.
Go on.
Because you have no problems. That's
true.
If you are on the vessel.
Yeah.
And there is no problem, no storm on the horizon, no leaves, anything. You can, as the captain, get drunk and go down. Then even the passengers, female passengers, can vote for the new captain. Of course, the most handsome will be chosen.
Of course,
But if there is a storm on the horizon and the reef, they stop the democracies. The women are hiding with the backs of the men. Boys do something. The boys, the first officer must rule, and the democracy is end. We have no problems now, and that's why we have democracy. And I tell you something more.
Go.
Suppose you are flying with 200 people in the plane, and there is a proposition to make a democracy. If you have left hands, the pilot has the right to land, and you stop them, the all things. Would anybody agree for democracy on the plane?
Of course
not.
not.
Why?
Because they crash.
The answer is given by the most important philosopher from the 20th century, Nicolas Davina, who said, people would much more frequently struck themselves in the finger with a hammer if the pain was after 1 year.
Yeah, they would.
So, the catastrophe of the plane will be in 15 minutes. The catastrophe of the state is after 200 years. So, people agree for the democracy in the state.
You are absolutely correct that democracies exist as democracies when it's not a time of crisis. I mean, the World War II is a great example. I mean, Britain had to re-democratize itself after the war because all of the effort needs to be put into defeating the Germans.
But you have to example San Marino and Switzerland when democracy works.
Yeah. Well, I agree. I mean, I love the fact that the Swiss can, the public can initiate referendums. That's incredible.
It is a republic, not democracy.
Yeah,
yes, it's a republic.
But the fact that the public have that kind of power of the state.
Somebody has told in America in 1848 that the republic will survive until somebody will discover that the government can bribe the people with their own money.
Yes. Yeah, people can vote for their own money. Yeah, no, you're absolutely. So what do you think about the future of Europe? Do you think we're going to get conquered by Muslims?
I think that the monarchy will return. I think we shall.
You think monarchy will return?
Monarchy or the sultanate. Either this or that.
Yeah, well, that's an interesting proposition. I would prefer monarchy given the option. Yeah. I would prefer the European monarchy had I had to choose.
Not Union.
Well, of course, But God forbid we get a sultanate, I suppose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
It's been a really great conversation.